Hi guys, it's Miss Pinto. So I'm going to be reading chapter 2 of Marvin Redpost Alone in His Teacher's House. Yesterday Miss Davila read chapter 1 called Teacher's Pet, and we learned that Mrs. North was going on vacation for a week, so she asked one of her students, Marvin, to watch her dog named Waldo. So we're going to read the next chapter. It's called The Key, so you can make a little prediction, you can write it down to what you think the next chapter will be about. When I'm reading a chapter book, I always like to go back to the last page of the last chapter I read, just to refresh my memory as to what happened. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the last page of chapter 1, and then I'll start reading chapter 2. No, said Marvin, still in shock. You want to play soccer? Asked Stuart. I can't, said Marvin. I have to meet Mrs. North in the parking lot. She's going to drive me in the car. Her car, said Nick. To her house, said Marvin. Her house, said Stuart. She's going to pay me to take care of her dog while she's away. Her friend stared at him, wide-eyed. $3 a day, plus a bonus for $4 if there's no problems. $25, said Stuart. He was good at math. You are so lucky, said Nick. You're the luckiest kid in the whole world. So now chapter 2, The Key. Now I remember that he was waiting for her in the parking lot. Marvin's friends waited with him in the parking lot. Which one do you think is her car? Asked Stuart. I don't know, said Marvin. I can't believe you guys are so dumb, Nick. She drives that yellow Firebird over there, next to Miss Grant's red Cougar. The pickup truck is Mr. McCabe's. The van is Mr. Gerby's. I can tell you every teacher's car. But you've never driven in one, said Stuart, patting Marvin on the back. Miss North came out of the office. She held a folder filled with papers. Are you ready, Marvin? She asked. He nodded. She just wanted to watch him. Get into your car, said Stuart. Miss North smiled. Well, it's that yellow one over there. I know, said Nick. Miss North and Marvin walked across the parking lot. May I carry that for you? Marvin asked. Thank you, said Marvin, said Mrs. North. She handed him the folder. It's my homework, she told him. You have homework? Sure, I have to correct your homework. In fact, I have a lot more homework than you. I have to correct your homework, plus the homework of every student in the class. Said Marvin. He never thought of that before. She unlocked the door of the car and got in, then reached and unlocked Marvin's door. That's the picture. They're in the parking lot. So you guys might be thinking the same thing, just the way we give you guys homework. We have homework. We have to create the lessons. We have to check your work. So when we give you guys homework, we get homework too. He sat down next to her. You have a very nice car, he said. Thank you, said Miss North. The seat is very comfortable. I'm glad you like it, said Miss North. He tugged gently on the seatbelt. The seatbelt seems nice and strong, he said. Good, said Miss North. In case I crash. She started the engine, then drove off. Marvin waved out the window to his two best friends, then he leaned back and enjoyed the ride. From the outside, Mrs. North's house just looked like a normal house. Marvin didn't know what he expected. Maybe a flagpole in front? He wondered if the neighbors even knew she was a teacher. They parked in the garage and walked inside through the laundry room. Waldo was waiting for them. His long black tail swished slowly behind him. He was a big dog with graying black hair. His face was covered with long gray whiskers, almost white. He looked like a walrus. Waldo, I'd like you to meet Marvin, Mrs. North said very politely. Marvin, this is Waldo. Nice to meet you, Waldo, Marvin said. He's 17 years old, said Miss North. That's 119 in dog years. So he's old. So he's 17, but that's 119 in dog years. So they say that one dog year is equivalent or equal to 7 human years. So her dog is 17, but in human years, he's 119, which explains why she didn't want to leave him in the kennel, right? Because he's very old, and she wanted someone that she trusted to watch him and make sure that he's getting taken care of the right way because he's so old. Marvin petted the old dog and scratched him behind the ears. Miss North showed Marvin around her house. Waldo followed. He waddled like a walrus when he walked. You live in just a regular house, said Marvin. Miss North laughed. What did you expect? A blackboard in the living room? He laughed. Waldo made a whining noise. It almost sounds like he was singing. So, classrooms didn't always have smart boards and iPads and laptops. They used to just have plain blackboards, which is also called a chalkboard, which I happen to have at home. So this is a chalkboard what classrooms used to have, and you would have to write on them like this, 3301, smiley face. You have to write it and then go back, erase it. So that's what classrooms used to have. They never had smart boards and iPads and all that fun stuff that you guys are so lucky to have now. So I guess that's what he was expecting to see in Mrs. North's house, but she didn't have one. Waldo made a whining noise. It was almost like he was singing. Miss North bent down and petted him. Oh, Waldo, she said, her nose almost touching his. I'm going to miss you, Waldo. Waldo licked her right on the mouth. Ew. Wet dog kisses. Marvin couldn't believe it. Mrs. North was almost like a real person. Would you like something to eat? She asked. I've got chocolate chip cookies. No, thank you. I'll be gone a week. They'll go stale if nobody eats them. So if something goes stale, that means it's old. So sometimes you might like have a bag of chips, a bag of Takis that you didn't eat, and then when you go back to them and if you leave it open, they get really hard and they don't taste as good as they do when you like first got them. Okay, said Marvin. While Marvin had cookies and milk, Miss North showed him where she kept Waldo's bowls, the leash, and the bag of dog food. He had to fill the bowls whenever they got low and had to walk Waldo 3 times a day, before school, after school, and in the evening. Oh, and here's his pooper scooper, said Mrs. North. You know what that's for? So a pooper scooper, it's almost like a little shovel that people who own dogs use to pick up the dog poop. So Miss Davila has to use a pooper scooper to pick up Rufus's poop so it doesn't sit in the grass or on the street because you don't want people to step on it. Marvin nodded and he swallowed a cookie. She wrote down the phone number of Waldo's vet just in case. So a vet is where animals go when they're sick, so it's the animal doctor. So just the way we go to doctors when we're not feeling well, the animals go to the vet. She also asked Marvin to bring in her mail and newspapers. So any questions? Marvin only had one question. Why did you pick me? Miss North smiled. You didn't think I let Nick alone in my house, do you? Marvin smiled. If you remember from chapter 1 when she said that she was leaving, she was telling them, like, if you misbehave, I'm going to know about it. And you remember she was like, that means you, Nick. So Nick must be a little of a troublemaker. That's why she's like, I am not leaving him alone in my house. So Miss North smiled. You didn't think I let Nick alone in my house, do you? Marvin smiled. I don't know, Miss North said more seriously. I feel like I can trust you, Marvin. I think you are mature and responsible. Marvin suddenly felt very mature and responsible. Oh, I almost forgot, she said. The key. She gave Marvin the key to her house. And that's the end of chapter 2. So we learned that he went to her house, he got a little tour, and now he has the key to Mrs. North's house. Okay, so you're going to go on to Google Classroom. There's questions there you can answer for chapter 2. And we'll read chapter 3 tomorrow. It's called Mature and Responsible. Bye, guys.